Hello there. Before I was rudely interrupted by the episode timer, um, yeah, I was talking about the first one of the songs on my band's first EP. Yeah, so onward. I won't recap what I was talking about before, so you can watch the previous episode for that. Also, this was dangerous. But yeah, it was about me going out into the sort of moorlands by my hometown and just seeing everything beneath me covered by fog. And yeah, basically, I had this idea of telling that story as, the fog was nature coming down to kind of wipe the slate clean and get rid of all the marks humanity has put on the world. And yeah, um, so that's what that song was about. I think it's my least favorite lyrically. I wasn't too I don't know. I feel like I could have done a lot better with the concept. I probably could have made it a lot more interesting, I think. But it was like it was the first one I started writing, and it was the last one I finished. It you know it took, I think, 2.5 years from the first writing the lyrics with all the like motivation losses and stuff like that. It just took a while before I really wanted to finish it. Which yeah, and if for some reason any of my band members are watching right now, I'm sorry that took me so long. But yeah, no, and then second track is Autumn's Blaze, which is just a sort of an ode to autumn. It's my favourite season. It has been my favourite season for a very long time now, and I just wanted to write a poem about how much I love it. That's what I did. Under those arching boughs, how I prayed to the glory of autumn. No, sorry, so yeah, so the beauty of autumn could never now fade, so my homeland forevermore could be clad in the glory of autumn's blaze. Yeah, that's probably my second favourite song on that EP. It's a really I think the guitar work on that really just like matched the tone I was looking for. It's this really melodic sort of mystical. I'm trying to think how to describe it to people. Ow, I'm trying to think how to describe it to people who haven't heard metal, but it's got this kind of like it's got this really nice sort of counterpart, I guess, between it's in some places very melodic and in others very melancholic. And I think that really just matched the vibe I wanted, because obviously autumn is inherently a pretty melancholic season, right? It's when the darkness comes earlier, it's when things decay, it's when things die. And it was just really nice to get to write lyrics that express that to match with the music. Um, the River is my favourite story out of them. That's track 3 of the EP, and it's about an experience I had that I've almost certainly talked about before. It was one time I went off into the wilderness in Sweden. I was visiting some friends there, and I decided to take the last day to just go out myself into Tyresta National Park, which is a snowy virgin forest, which means that there's no human intervention. The trees that fall are allowed to just fall and stay where they are. And yeah, I've just never felt that that much like solitude. I've never felt like so solitary and so just sort of so like peaceful in nature. I don't think it was genuinely like Probably it's up there with like the most memorable like trips of my life. I spent the whole thing just walking around this snow-covered forest. I didn't see another person for the entire day, and and yeah, that was such a memorable experience. And the river is about that forest, and well, obviously the river that I was sort of following for most of the trip. Again, yeah, one of my favourites. Your path starts in the mountain tops amidst colossal spires. You ride the wind so far above, at the heart of thunder's ire, then find your folk in nameless rills in the valley's mighty moor, and wander down an ageless path so many walked before. Yeah, the opening verse is definitely my favourite part of that, and then yeah, I'll just say the second one as well because I think the way it continues. So after that, it continues. Mark now the cliffs that howl in pain, where snaring branches grow. Above find verdant canopies, seek not the sun's gold glow. Run through a tangled maze of veins, for there you're made complete. A basin black with peat and mud is where we'll finally meet. And that is, you can probably tell, that is about sort of, it's narrating sort of the river's progress through the land and through the and like towards the sea, up from where it began in the icy mountains to where I saw it in the forest. And yeah, it just goes on to have a it's very, you know, standard nature poetry stuff, reverencing the reverencing how like sorry, I've lost track now. Just like how mighty the natural world is around us, and how insignificant we can often seem before it. And you know, genuinely part of the reason I like Minecraft so much is that it gives me that same feeling, you know, of this mighty natural world that I'm a tiny part of, and I think especially the caves. I think Minecraft and Terraria, two of the reasons that I find caves so fascinating, and I'm way too claustrophobic to ever do any of those proper cave dives that all of the memes are about. But yeah, no, it's, I just love the concept of a cave that just goes so much deeper than we can fathom. Rest in peace, Salty. And I think that's why, you know, me and my friends are talking about starting like an SMP world soon. And I was saying that like, I'm not a builder in Minecraft, I'm a caver through and through, so that's why I spend so much time underground in UHCs, is this feeling, diamonds, this feeling of just exploring a huge space and that anything could be around the corner, it never gets old for me. It will never get old for me. It's yeah, it's wonderful. It's half the reason I love this game so much. It's a big part of why I love Terraria so much as well. Yeah. You know, more news at 7. This game is awesome. And yeah, so also speaking of revering nature, the last track, I've always described it the same way. I've always, oh, hello. Yeah, I've always told the story of the last track in the same way. It's a song about how one day, you know, some days I'm feeling cynical, I will admit that. I'm feeling like, what's the point in, you know, trying to do all this like climate activism and stuff I do when we're on a path to destroying the world and it just seems so hopeless that we'll be able to stop that. And basically, one of the things I like to take solace in during times like that is that despite everything, we still have the forests. We still have true wilderness. We still have, like, you know, we still have a lot of, you know, nature is kind of oftentimes just feels unconquerable, right? It's like, you're never going to cut down this tree. And if you do, you know, there's a reason those post-apocalyptic aesthetics are so popular with, where, you know, the cityscape is covered by trees. The moss will peek through the cracks in the concrete. And I take solace in the fact that after everything's ended, if we do end up, you know, just all killing each other and ourselves, there are still going to be forests, and there are still going to be trees standing tall, and there are still going to be stars in the sky. And I basically wrote a song about that realization happening, and yeah, and yeah, it's kind of about the time when, it's about somebody feeling that there is no hope left in the world for the forests and nature, and sort of calling back to his ancestors to provide him that solace that he cannot find himself. And yeah, I think musically it's my favourite one. There's a folk section in the middle where which sort of basically was I think, yeah, that's a lyric I might quote. I think I love every lyric in the song, so if you go and either listen to it on our Bandcamp or go and read the lyrics, you'll like read the whole poem, which I was very proud of. But yeah, the section I'm talking about. An old man wanders in a nameless world. He gazes to the fallows. Upon the shores of a silver lake, he wades out to the shallows. And far above the spirits soar, all risen from their barrows, they call him down into the murky depths to sail into the shadows. He stumbles forward at the turn of night. He cries for fire in the dying light. He'll watch the world from the skies above in endless horror but undying love, bringing flames of August, singing songs of May. He'll return someday when the lights all fade away. And that was me trying to write basically the moment of transition between this very idyllic world. You know, there's different ways of looking at what the world looked like before civilization. There's the classic debate in philosophy is Rousseau versus Hobbes, where Rousseau was basically the one who was a proponent of man in a state of nature, lived in egalitarian, idyllic tribes, and then civilization effectively shackled us to the system we live in today and one another. And then Hobbes is the other classical point of view, who was a much more... his famous quote was that life in nature was nasty, brutish, and short. And so I was, in this song, I've also read a very interesting writing by one of my favourite authors, anthropologist David Graeber. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he effectively said that, like, this whole debate was, oh my god, this whole debate was sort of something that we shouldn't really be taking it as, like, you know, one side or the other, because it is just a bit, like, reductive, and also those two weren't actually really the originators of those ideas. I believe it was, a lot of them were taken from indigenous people who didn't have those Western European platforms to speak for themselves. And yeah, so... But basically all of that was a detour. I was just saying I was taking a much more Rousseauian point of view of, like, I don't necessarily believe in my personal life that, you know, things were better before civilization. Like, you know, we have a lot of modern comforts to thank for it, and even modern comforts, see, is such a, like, bad way of putting it, because, you know, I think it's not important in the end that I have a computer and I can play Minecraft right now, right? That's not what's important. What's important is that we've found cures to a lot of very preventable diseases. We've managed to stop people from, you know, dying in childbirth and, you know, the like. That's the important part, not the modern comforts and luxuries. But I do still think something something was lost, I think, when we moved away from the countryside, and when we started seeing countryside more as something to use and control than something to coexist with. And that, I think what I was trying to do in that particular verse was I was trying really hard to depict a single moment where that change happened, where we went from, you know, coexisting with nature to controlling it. The old man is looking over the fallows. The fallows is farmland, you know. And yeah, so I'm going to need to look up how to make a crossbow. Okay, we can do that. But yeah, so that was sort of the artistic intention behind that verse, was to depict a moment where this change happens. People are nethering. Maybe I should go to the nether. That'd be fun, maybe. Let's go enchanted first. Oh, liquid sugar was slain by bacon. GG. So, these people keep, like, doing stuff in the game, and it makes me lose track of, like, what I'm trying to say. Can we do a second one with the second? I think we only need one crossbow, really. "24 arrows is not ideal, but it's what we have for now." But yeah, no, and just to finish my thought there before I move on, the final line of that, bringing flames of August, singing songs of May, he'll return someday when the lights all fade away. That is basically saying that the song in the album, it's called Spirits of Old, and that line is about how the spirits of our ancestors, you know, still watch over us and will return when, yeah, when the last city falls, I guess. It's, yeah, so I think one thing I do with these songs is I don't necessarily... I'm not trying to reflect my entire worldview, right? I'm not trying to capture all of my feelings about this topic at once, because it's incredibly complicated, and, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I think the most important part is that I don't know how I feel about a lot of these things. I don't know how I feel about, you know, the modern world and our modern comforts. I don't know whether I like it more than I would like, you know, a cabin in the woods, to put it one way. And yeah, so I think that's kind of what I try and do with art, is I try and explore my feelings, but not in the way where I'm answering questions. And many of my stories also do that. End of episode 3. I guess that's a good way to good place to segue, right? Considering topics about to change. See you next time.